G'day guys, welcome to Pressure's Edge, and I'm back at the boat again today. What we're going to be doing today is I'm using unwaxed vinyl ester resin. It's sitting over there, and I don't need to sand it back, but I'm going to sand a tiny little bit back. I've got a couple of air bubbles that I couldn't reach, I couldn't get to, so I'm going to have to go back and sand that out. I'm going to have to fix up a few bits and pieces, so that's the very first thing that I'm going to do. Well, it's the second thing actually, because what I've done is I've got myself organised. So I've got my mask, my paper mask, I've got some hearing protection that I just dropped, I've got another dust mask, I've got all my gloves ready, I've got containers sitting there ready to go, I've got my MEKP sitting there ready so that I can just reach out for it and grab it. I've got rags and containers and sanders and everything all ready to go, so that I don't end up in a mess like I did yesterday. I had to stop prematurely, I got cranky and I went, yeah! Threw the dummy out of the cot, so to speak, and come back for another crack at it today. So hopefully it's going to go a lot better. Oh, the other thing that I did too is because some of the areas that I'm trying to get to I can't reach very well, I went and got myself a stick. That I had, well, I actually had this sitting at home. Just get into some of those tight spots, some of those areas where I just couldn't reach. So because of the way that the boat's set up, because of the way that the extension is, I've had to basically try and find another way other than trying to crawl in there and getting resin all over yourself. And if you've ever had resin that is catalyzing on your skin or whatever, you'll know how much it burns. It's not very nice, it's not very nice at all. So today that's not going to happen, hopefully. Alright, so I'm going to go and do a little bit of sanding and clean up a little bit, and then we'll come back and do some laminating. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to cut my fiberglass. Yeah. And I know that the boat is 2.4 metres wide, so it's got a beam of 2.4 metres, and what I'm going to do is just cut it just over the 2.4. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically doing all of my prep work. So I've taken all of my measurements, I know exactly how much glass I need, so what I'm doing is measuring it out onto the glass, cutting it up, getting it prepared, putting it into a position where I can reach out and grab it so that I'm all prepared, ready to go. One of the worst things that can happen to you when you're fiberglassing is have your resin catalyst. So you put the catalyst into the resin, your MEKP, and it's starting to go off, it's starting to work. You've got a working time. You've got a set period of time to get it all down. And once you've done that, if it starts to gel off, it's very, very difficult to work with, and you're going to have to come back and rework it. It'll go hard. You'll have to come back and sand it back, grind it back, and do it all again. So preparation is key. And what I do then is measure out my resin. I've learnt that 1.2 kilograms of the vinyl ester resin is pretty much gives me the right amount and the right amount of time to work with it. I measure out the catalyst at 2%, and I don't add the catalyst until I actually need to use that bucket of resin. And now I'm basically adding the glass and the resin over the top. I did do it a little bit dry, so I had to go back and sand it back a little bit and do a bit of that work again. But there were no air bubbles in it, that was all okay. But I'm reasonably happy with the way it's come out. I am going to add more laminates to that though. See what's going on there. So I've glassed it all up. I've got my skin on there, so that's the skin for the transom, the thermalite. There's 3 layers of thermalite going in there a little bit later, but that's all got to happen over time. And you can see the chine over the other side there. I've basically just got that in, I've glassed it in. It's not finished, I've still got a bit to go with that, but yeah, there's quite a bit of work still to go. I'll get into the boat, inside the boat now, and I'll show you what's going on in there as well. I'll jump up in there. Alrighty, not sure if you're going to be able to see this very well, but if you've been following the videos, you would have seen where I created the formwork and everything. Well, now you can see that that formwork is now replaced with the fiberglass itself. So that's the fiberglass that is forming the hull extension. We've got a chine over here. Looks like it's all shadowed when I turn around there, but there's the chine, that's thermalite. There was 600 gram choppy, there was some biaxial laminates in there, and then the thermalite over the top, and then there's more thermalite going in there a little bit later on. You also noticed, see where I've cut this slot out there? The whole reason for that is get my hand in the way, that is the original transom. What's going to happen is thermalite is going to come all the way down to meet the original floor, and that's going to all be glassed in. But that bulkhead there has got to be full height, so it's got to be the same height as the floor. And what I want to do is that bulkhead is going to come all the way through. So I've basically cut the slot so that on both sides, so that can come all the way through. Now what I've done is I had my naval architect design the gyro bed for a seakeeper gyro. That may have to wait for another time, but essentially I'm going to build the bed anyway to get it ready. But that's, yeah, one of those things. And that's essentially where we're at. Righto, see that little hole down the back there? Essentially what I've had to do is drill a hole in the back of it because it's been raining so much that the boat was filling up with water. Well, not filling up with water, but it was getting too much water in it. So I had to drill a hole through the back there and let the water just run out. So that's why that's there, guys, no other reason. That's all that is. As you can see, if I get up, what I've been trying to do, this is a bit of a mess here at the moment. Please don't think that this is the finished product, because it's not. If you can see this, see that's the lip there, that's where the old hull used to finish, the transom was, and comes up here. So this is essentially going to be a thermalite coming down. It's going to come all the way down to the floor, and it's going to be glassed in. This bulkhead, like I said, is going to come through here, and it's going to go right around to the back of the boat. Okay, what I've also done here is where the old hull used to stop, and I've done my hull extension. I've glassed on the inside. Remember me saying I glassed on the outside and overlapped it? Well, I've done the same thing on the inside as well. So that comes over and overlaps, and that's going to be thickened up a lot more. There's a lot more work to be done, guys. Don't think that this is you know, this is just a work in progress. So a lot of work to do, but we're slowly getting there. I've had a couple of days of weather that's been kind of good to me. Been bloody hot. If it's not raining, it's incredibly hot. I've been sweating like a dog. I've been cramping up. I've been getting into my electrolytes and everything else to try and make sure that I don't have too many problems, but it's been a tough gig, no doubt about that. Not ideal for fiberglassing either. I've got to say, got to point that out. You know, if I had the choice, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I wouldn't be doing it in this weather, but I don't have any choice. It's got to get done. Out comes the angle grinder again. Basically getting the side of the boat ready to do some laminating, put some glass on it to tab that little part of the extension to the side of the existing hull. So basically, yeah, using 40 grit paper, leveling it off, not leveling it off, but making sure that the line of the extension is the same as the line of the existing hull. Anything that needs to be taken back is taken back, and then acetone over the top of that, clean it all up. So what I'm going to be doing here is laying 600 gram chop strand mat first. I always lay chop strand mat under biaxial cloth, and then I'm going to put 600 gram quad axial cloth over the top of that. So to get ready for that, I've got to basically put a good layer of the resin down to wet the surface out. that does two things. One, it allows it to, when I put the fiberglass up there, it allows the fiberglass to stay in place, give me enough time to work with it and get more glass into it. And the second thing that it does is it makes sure that the resin itself is going to saturate the fiberglass. It's going to go through both sides. There's no point in just trying to add the resin over the top of the glass once the glass is in. So that's what I'm basically doing, is getting it all ready. I'll put the glass up, and then once I've got the glass up, I'll add more resin to it. And when I'm happy with that, when I'm happy with the amount of resin in there, I'll roll it out. Once I've rolled it out, I'm happy that there's no air bubbles in it and it's worked in properly. Then I'll add a little bit more resin over that. Again, the idea of that is to make sure that the quad axial glass that I put in over the top is going to be saturated all the way through, from the bottom right through. And I'll add some more the resin over the top of that once that's done, and roller it out again. So there's a couple of different times where I roller it. Once when I put the 600 gram matting in, and then when I'm getting ready to complete the work. So very, very important to get rid of all of those air bubbles and to work it out well. And the other thing that I do is typically I'll make sure that I get all the air bubbles out by pushing them to the edges, and I'll work the rollers to the edges and get the bubbles out that way. Just always constantly just working it. Even when I'm rolling the resin on itself, I'll roll it so that I'm pushing to the edges. If I see something that's not quite right, I'll push it out. I'll try and get that air out. Alrighty, there you go, guys. That's how I do it anyway. Hope you get something from that. Cheers, legends. This is the side of the boat. So essentially this has come out of the mould, not like this though, because what happened is I had a little bit of a problem, and the problem was that when I realised that I didn't have enough room for the transom for the outboards to swing up all the way, I basically had to do an extension. So when I did the extension, I moved the formwork back a little bit, but what that did is it pushed it out a little bit at the stern there, right where that transom is. So I had to basically fix that. So what I had to do was cut it all out and line it all back up again. So what we've got now is that's all good again. I'll show you that in a second. But what I did, give you a better idea. So this was originally the formwork, I guess, the mould. Right, so that was in there, and I've glassed in that. But what happened was I had originally had it back here, and that maintained the shape quite well. But then I had to push it back. But when I pushed it back, it came out. Right. So what that did is it pushed that out, and when you look along the line of the boat, you could see that it was kinked out. No good. So I had to fix that. So that basically involved cutting this section out, lining it all back up, and getting it flush. The boat, the hull of the boat sort of comes back a little bit, and it comes narrower at the stern. So I followed the same sort of thing. I'll just grab my straight edge. So my straight edge, I'm using obviously a spirit level as a straight edge, and what I'm doing is basically putting it up along the edge of the boat and making sure that it follows the original line of the boat. There's a little bit of a dip in there, but that's okay because that's going to be filled. And then we come along, and I'm looking at this thinking, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so that's what we've got. So this here, basically I've got some FF360 there at the moment. Now my design shows 19mm thermalite, so I am putting my 19mm thermalite on the inside of that as well, and that's going to stiffen that up even more, and that's going to follow up right up inside the boat. And you can see what I've done is I glassed, what's that? That's, believe it or not guys, that's 200mm. So the design said overlap the existing hull by 100mm, so I doubled it. Paranoid, right? So I doubled it to 200mm, at least 200mm. So that's basically come up. So the glass, when I've locked it all in, I've glassed it all the way through and basically overlapped or tabbed to the original hull 200mm in. So there, underneath that there's one layer of 600 gram chopped strand mat, and then I've got biaxial, actually no, I lied, that's quad axial over the top of that, and then we're using the biaxial everywhere else, and we're locking it all in. So that's pretty much that part of it anyway. I think that's pretty good. And you'll see also on the underside of the hull, the chine follows the existing hull as well. So that is all pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've got to, like I said, fill that a little bit. Now what's going to happen with this hull as well is basically there's going to be a hull extension come out, and the reason for that is because in Australia we have an Australian standard AS7899 that we need to basically follow, and what it does is there's a clause in there that outlines a maximum horsepower rating. So for this boat, the maximum horsepower rating, even when I extend the hull out, I basically get 450 horsepower. So that's what we're working to. working to that Australian standard, making sure that we can comply with that standard, and making sure that we can get it all right, I guess. The other, what it's going to do too, is it's going to provide, so we've got the chine line here. What's going to happen is there's going to be a secondary chine basically up about here somewhere, so it's going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be below the waterline. What we don't want is to create a problem where we've got chine slap, where you're sitting there and the waves are constantly smashing up against the underside of the chine and you get this slap. So we want to avoid that. So we're dropping it down below the waterline, and it's going to come out a little bit more. I haven't got the dimensions for that yet. That's with the naval architect. He's going to come back to me with that, but that's where we're at the moment anyway. So there's a different sort of a shot, guys. So you can see the hull extension there, you can see the chine follows the original. That's obviously going to be tidied up. That's not the finished product, but it just gives you an idea of where we're heading. A lot more work to do. I have got to do a bit more glassing work even on that skin there. There's some overlaps that I've just got to fix up and grind back and fix up, but that's all a part of fiberglassing. So if we come back a bit, that's pretty much it. That's where I am today. A lot more to go, but at least we're making some progress. I've had a couple of days, yippee, I've had a couple of days where it hasn't rained, so I've been able to come and do something. Unreal, nice. Alrighty, alright legends, thanks again, and we'll catch you on the next one, eh?